Okay, so we decided we were going to start a podcast.
We sure are.
We're literally like nobody, so I don't know why we're doing this.
No, for real. Whatever. We just like hearing ourselves talk, I think.
Actually, okay, so I just got into like watching podcasts, so.
I tried watching. Actually, we had to watch podcasts a few times for like my class, but God, dumb bitches are annoying. I tune out if I can't watch it with the video or like expressions or something. I just can't do it.
Wait. Okay, so you probably came here for the title. And we are going to be talking about the term Latinx.
We sure are.
Sadly. But just a little bit of background on us. We're both in college.
We sure are.
We are both Latina, I guess.
We both are Latina.
But we were both born here. So yeah, I guess we have more of the perspective of like the US Latino person or Latinx person. Latinx. See, I always have to correct myself, okay? But I do use the term Latinx. What term do you use?
I used to use Latinx, and I started using after I found out like that it was like not the best term to use to be inclusive. I started using Latinx, yeah. And then after that, I just started using the word Latin if I was gonna be talking about someone that's gender nonconforming.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a journey.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess one of the main. Okay, so I don't even know where to start, honestly, because this is such a complicated topic to talk about. But I feel like it's one that we need to talk about because oftentimes when like you see articles on like Facebook or Twitter,
Latinx.
Yeah. And there's no problem with that.
That and hold on, I want to mention something because in my class I'm doing a Latin American Studies course, but we got like, it's like when class first started we talked about the term Latinx, but it's like there wasn't any articles or like sources covering like why it's problematic. It's like they just went with it. Like all they said was like Latinx was a term invented by college students in like the late 70s, and then they just left it at that. And it was like praising it, I guess, but I'm like, all right, but where's the discourse, you know? Because if something always comes with a bad aspect, you know? So like I was just waiting for but this is problematic but it never came.
Okay, so this is going to be a good conversation because you don't really use the term, but I do.
This is going to be a good conversation.
So interesting. So we read this really interesting article, and like if you're watching this through video, I will link the article down below, I guess. But this is by, okay, so both of their names are Gilbert, but it's Gilbert Guerra and Gilbert Orbea. I don't know if I'm saying their names correct or not. You would say it like that, right? Guerra? Anyways, I didn't really like what they had to say in this article. The article is called "The Argument Against the Use of the Term Latinx." And my first problem with this article is the fact that it's two men writing this article, right? So a lot of the points, I feel like a lot of the points that we have spoken about against the use of the term Latinx makes sense, right? But a lot of what they bring up in this article is just sort of like
machista?
Very machista.
There you go.
Very machista. And might I add, I think they are people who are sort of huge in the Chicano movement, and I'm not really for the Chicano movement either. Well, okay, so I guess we could go back to giving background, right? So you are a queer person, right?
Yes, I don't like the term queer, but
look, you never know what terms to use, right? Because I don't use that term either, right? But we're both women. We both identify as women, right? And you are
bisexual.
Okay.
And Mexican.
Okay. And I am Puerto Rican and Mexican, right? So that is another reason why I don't really use the term Chicano. I personally do not like to use it, nor do I like to identify with the movement, I guess. But yeah, maybe we should go back to like maybe we should go back to our standpoints and why we use it. So I guess the first time that I was ever introduced to the term Latinx was by my friend, and he is also bisexual, right? And I never really used it at first, but then he started using it, and yeah, that's how he identified, because of the fact that he was a, I guess, bisexual man. So then that's how he liked to be called or identify as. So I was like, okay. And then I sort of read on it, and it seemed to be a really reasonable term, because obviously we know the Latino community is very machista. Machismo just like runs deep, right? So obviously along with that, the fucking language is, I guess I'm gonna swear,
it's a gendered language.
Yeah, it's a very gendered language. So there's just so much to unpack when it comes to our culture, right? It's like I don't even know. Look, but I guess like one of the main reasons I wanted to have this conversation was because, like I brought up before, like when you see like tweets of people using the term Latinx that like blow up, or like TikToks or anything like that, you always see those comments under the TikTok, the tweet, the post on Instagram or whatever, like, oh, why do you guys use the term Latinx? It doesn't even make sense. It's not this, it's not that. Just use the term Latino or use Latin, right? And what I notice, just like with this article, is that the people who say these things are always like Latino men, right?
It's so interesting when you see who, like, when someone doesn't use it, it's interesting to see why, because it's either they have like valid reasons, like whether it be because the term is like elitist, or it's like talking about linguistic colonialism, or when it comes to when like opposing it just because it's Latino men who want to be transphobic. Like, it's one of the two.
Or it's usually a lot of like people from Latin America as well who know English, but that's a lot to unpack as well with those people that I encounter on the internet. So it's like
being on Twitter is a bargain. It's a wild card.
Dude, I don't even know. But okay. So okay, you brought up linguistic imperialism, right? And that is one thing that actually kind of pissed me off in this article. They use linguistic imperialism as their argument, but where I think they get like the idea of linguistic imperialism very wrong. Okay, I guess I'll just read what they said and what I disagreed with. So they said, this is a blatant form of linguistic imperialism, the forcing of U.S. ideals upon a language in a way that does not grammatically or orally correspond with it. So let's be very honest. Spanish is not a language that is technically native to Latin America.
It is definitely not native to Latin America.
Because, okay, so if we're going to talk about linguistic imperialism, Spanish falls under that category because obviously the Spaniards brought Spanish over with them, along with all the other problematic shit like machismo and all of that. So
I feel like,
I don't know.
I feel like that's also why we shouldn't be blaming people who don't, or like getting mad or like making fun of people like Latinos who don't speak Spanish, because it's like why are you saying, oh, you're not Mexican because you don't speak Spanish or something. Like, you're essentially speaking the language of colonizers.
Yeah, Spanish is the language of the colonizer. So if we're going to bring up the argument of linguistic imperialism, it's not really a valid like argument to make, because technically Spanish, the Spaniards imposing Spanish onto the natives that lived there, it was a form of linguistic imperialism as well, because a lot of times they forced them to shed their own languages in order to adopt the language that they were speaking, because obviously colonialism, whatever. Yeah, so I just don't feel like linguistic imperialism is really that good of an argument.
I see where you're coming from, but I also see their point where they're saying like, you're kind of, I don't like how they phrased it, just because it's like, oh, you want to impose new ideals the term Latino or Latina like already like it already has like a gender binary, so it kind of feels like they're saying, oh, like non-binary people like don't exist. That's kind of what it feels like when they word it like that. But I do understand them saying that they're using a letter that kind of like the term Latinx just not the term but the and putting the letter in just doesn't make sense. Like for example, like Latinx, like that would make more sense like to a person like in Latin America and someone in the US, just because it's more like grammatically incorrect. But I can see where they're coming from when they say Latinx. It's just like it kind of just throws it off.
Yeah, look, I'm for both Latinx and Latinx, right? And I get that the X doesn't make sense, but I feel like also like if you live in the US and you're, I guess, a US Latino or whatever, Latinx person, it's okay to use Latinx because we know what it means, you know what I mean? And if we're speaking to someone over there, then maybe we will choose to use the term Latinx. I feel like we're never going to like agree on it, right? No one.
Yeah, no one's ever going to agree.
No one's ever going to agree on it. But another interesting thing that he brought up, which I think, I don't know, it's a lot to unpack as well.
Let's see.
It says, it is interesting to observe how many Latinx activists become outraged when a non-Latino person wears traditional Latino costumes, such as sombreros, without understanding the significance of what they are wearing when they themselves participate in a form of reverse appropriation.
Well,
and he's using, okay, so they're using this as an excuse, and they're saying that this is basically linguistic imperialism. They bring up linguistic imperialism in order, I don't know, to defend that. To be clear, that is not to say these Latinos are detached from the culture, but rather taking American ideals and social beliefs and inserting into a language that has widespread use in places outside of the U.S. See, this goes along with what you said, like, we shouldn't, like, especially U.S. Latinos, Latinx people, we shouldn't, like, shame people for not knowing how to speak Spanish, right? Because it doesn't necessarily define your Latinidad, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know if that's what he's trying to say, is that, oh, since it's not basically our native language because we live in the U.S., we were born in the U.S., that technically it's not our language, so by speaking the language, we're appropriating? Is that what he's trying to say, do you think?
I have no idea, because it also implies that the U.S. has, like, a set language, like an official language, which isn't the case, you know, because, like, English isn't the official language for the U.S.
There's no official language.
There's no official language. Like the human geography.
But can you believe participate in a form of reverse appropriation? If it is our culture as well, if we are Latino, right? We grew up with all these Latino values, with our culture, our foods, everything. How are we participating in reverse appropriation just because we're born here? We still have all the customs.
Exactly.
We still speak the language. You know, even if you don't speak the language, why does it matter?
I was gonna say something, but I forgot.
Look.
Hold on, I'm gonna try to remember what I was gonna say.
Man.
Okay, I'm almost there. I almost got it.
And then he says, we are not arguing against gender-inclusive language, a misguided desire to forcibly change the language we and millions of people around the world speak to the detriment of all. And so what I had to say about this is, it's comical because how are we forcibly changing a language by misguided desire? Like, there is nothing misguided about wanting a language and culture that has such a deep-rooted sexism and homophobia to be inclusive. It's changing the norms our abuelos, etc., had instilled on us.
I can definitely agree with you on that because, god damn, I forgot what I was gonna say again. Oh my god, hold on, let me see your paper real quick. Maybe it'll come to me.
Yeah, I wrote heavy notes on this.
I remember. Okay, so basically, language is changing. It's constantly evolving.
Yes.
So I do think that the term, that's why it doesn't anger me like it does to other people that, like, it's changing. Like there's a new inclusive term. I don't think, in my opinion, like everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and obviously I'm not gonna judge someone because I know they have good intentions. You know, like it's a gender neutral term. I'm not gonna get pissed off at someone using Latinx, but I think it's good that people are noticing that there needs to be a change that has to happen in the language. So whether you're using the term Latinx, Latin, or Latinx, I feel like in the end you have like a good intention, and even then, you know, you're making an effort, and like anyways, even if you do change what you choose to say, it constantly it's constantly changing, and you're constantly learning new things. So
I agree. And I feel like, see, another one of my like things is that I feel like I sort of like to ask people what term they like to use. And obviously I always use they them. I feel like it's like, okay, a lot of people are like, oh, but like what's the point of all this they them stuff, all this gender neutral shit? Like, it's like, honestly, for me, I haven't found it that hard to just be like, hey, like they this, they that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And calling a person they.
It's if not anything, difficult at all.
It's not difficult, right? So like, in order to make other people comfortable, I just use the terms.
Exactly. It's not hard. Like, if like I started doing this the beginning of the year, or maybe the beginning of the year, like around like a year and a half ago. I started using the term they them for everyone, just because it's like, it's respectful, first of all. And even then, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try calling everyone they them, and maybe like 2 weeks into it, it was already kind of the default, you know. So it's like, it's not hard to get used to. It's just a matter of you wanting to change it.
Okay, another article that they gave us in class to talk about, because this was like one of the first things we talked about in my Latin American. So I take a class called Latin American History in the United States. So it sort of focuses on like immigration and like movements that formed here to support the Latino community and whatnot. Oops, sorry.
My note is on.
So this one is called "Is Latinx Elitist? Some Pushback at the Word's Growing Use." And this one is by Stephen Nuno Perez and Gwen Aviles.
What's it called again?
Is Latinx elitist? Some pushback at the word's growing use. But yeah, okay. So one quote. I guess I'm just picking at all the problematic shit they say, right? Sure. So one quote is, they actually interviewed this guy. His name is Motecuzoma Sanchez.
Interesting.
And I if I mispronounce anything, I really don't mean to do so, but so basically he's a political activist in Stockton, California, who works in community advocacy, police and government accountability, and is the founder of a local organization that focuses on literacy called Semillas, and views the term Latinx as fashionable identity.
What the?
Now, obviously,
that's already such bullshit, because the point of it is to be inclusive. It's kind of like saying wanting to be gender being gender non-conforming is a fashionable.
And he says it is adopted by elite Latinos to address an issue he doesn't see as crucial in his community. And here we go, a trend of Latino men giving their unwanted opinions on things that don't really concern them because they are straight cis men, right? And he goes on to say, Latinos still struggle with educational advancement, incarceration, teenage pregnancy, police brutality, predatory bank practices, discrimination, crime and violence, low literacy, immigration and labor exploitation, diabetes, etc. But suddenly, gender nouns are a priority, says Sanchez.
It's like multitasking is not a thing.
Right. It's like, it's almost as if our brains just can't handle multiple things at once, as if everything he said wasn't already a lot to unpack. All of the issues. as if sexism isn't really a problem in Latin America. You know what I mean?
There's
it's a huge problem.
There's women in Mexico dying, like,
there's huge movements.
Yes.
Everywhere in Latin America of women protesting right now. And it's been happening for years. But suddenly, and it's...
Anyways, this issue has been a problem for a while, too, because gender non-conforming Latinos didn't show up a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They've always been here.
Right. It's just like this issue of like people brushing it off because it's like it's not a problem that is important, right? And it's definitely an important topic because sexism greatly affects our communities, greatly. Even back in our home countries, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Our parents' home countries. So it's like, God, I feel like this topic is just...
It's loaded.
Yeah, you could like go so many ways. I'm sorry, I apologize if we are like all over the place with this.
It's our first podcast.
Yes, this is our first episode. I don't know. I think my biggest problem with these articles, and when I read stuff on the internet, it's like it's always men giving their unwanted opinions, and I hate to be that person that's like, oh, men are just like... Actually, no, I don't hate to be that person because I literally am that person where I'm like, literally, men are the problem for the root of all evil.
Men really are at the root of all evil.
I just lost 5 subscribers.
You know what? Good.
You know what? Good. I didn't want you here anyways. I didn't want you here. No, but
I do think I always freaking forget what I'm gonna say.
You gotta stop this if you're gonna do this podcast.
I have to start like
Wait,
jotting.
what are we gonna name this podcast? Puras pendejadas.
Puras pendejadas.
Because we always say that.
That's
or
true.
las huercas.
Las Guercas. Classic. That's a classic.
And if we name it Las Huercas and you're confused and you come here, I guess we'll give a brief explanation. It's because our family always calls us huercas. Your mom, papi, grandma. She's the main one who started the huercas.
She hated our ass.
Yeah, so when we would do bad shit as kids, they'd be like, pinches huercas.
We wouldn't even do anything. She was just kind of bitter.
I mean, we were pretty annoying kids. You were always on
You
some
were
other
always
shit.
on some bullshit too.
I agree,
Okay,
but
so
I was on like normal bullshit, like normal kid bullshit. You were on like that brat shit.
Is that what they strapped you down when you were at the dentist?
And that's exactly why they look. I have a huge. Still to this day, I have a huge fear of the dentist. So don't.
I fall asleep at the dentist. Anyways, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, way off topic.
What are we talking about?
The term Latinx.
I know, but
it's just like, okay, I'm trying to like not go off on like 10 different things, you know what I mean? But like also it's like,
we should make an outline.
Right? Next episode?
Yeah, next episode we'll make an outline. But I think the first problem that comes within all of this, in terms of like talking about it, is the fact that no one is talking about it.
Right.
Like, you just see people using the term it's just so much miseducation too, because you see like people just carelessly using terms. It's not just the term Latinx, like just carelessly using terms that they don't understand. You know, like at first I didn't. I'm just stop talking. I feel like I kind of just got it out there. Like, I feel like I also feel like it's what I found when we were learning about Cesar Chavez, because it's all just a bunch of praise and it's all a bunch of good things, and you don't acknowledge the other side. Like, if you want to form good opinions with valuable information with actual weight, you should be looking at both sides of the coin.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Cesar Chavez was a piece of shit.
Okay, I mean, this episode doesn't have to just be about the term Latinx. I guess maybe because there's so much to unpack. I guess maybe we can go back to when we introduced ourselves, and I said that I don't identify as a Chicana, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I can talk about that. I guess
true.
It sort of aligns with this. Because like you said, I guess I feel that way about the term Chicano, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that I feel like people use terms carelessly. And I feel like Chicano is one of those terms that people use carelessly nowadays. And they don't really educate themselves on like the movement and all of that. And I feel like my main problem, right, with the term Chicano is, as someone who is both Puerto Rican and Mexican, I feel like I've always like struggled with my identity a lot in terms of like, well, am I more Mexican? Am I more Puerto Rican? Am I this? Am I that? But I feel like I always feel Puerto Rican, but I also always feel Mexican. I don't feel like I lean more to any other side.
It's like right in the middle.
Right. And I feel like at times I've always been put in like...
It's like you were forced into categories. Is that kind of what?
I don't know, because I feel like nowadays the way I guess, okay, so the term Chicano, the problem I have with it, right, is that it's exclusively for Mexicans. If we're really being honest, it's exclusively for Mexicans. And that's why I guess I like the term Latinx, and I identify as Latinx rather than a Chicana.
Because it's so inclusive.
Because it's more inclusive of all of Latin America. And I feel like a huge problem that we have in the U.S. as Latinos, and even as people identifying us, I feel like a lot of Latinos have identity crises, like crises?
Crises? Crises?
I don't know.
think it's crises.
In the U.S. because of the fact, not the cat.
Oh my god, the cat is...
Okay, so there's a cat that we feed, and he's at my window, but he just walked past. He just said hi and bounced.
I miss him.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That was cute. Anyways. Okay, so I feel like a lot of Latinx people in the U.S. have like identity crises because it's as if everybody is sort of chunked into being Mexican. Like, I know...
The default is Mexican, and as a Mexican, that shit pisses me off.
Yeah, we really need to stop that. And look, you know what's funny too is that like whenever I meet like Mexican people or any Latinos for that matter, usually, you know, like obviously you always have those people who are like, hey, like what are you? Like I know you're Latino, but like what are you? And I'm always like, guess. And people always guess Puerto Rican, but they never guess Mexican. Never. And I don't know. You guess. You decide. You tell me what I look more like. And I don't feel like there's a certain way of looking like the other, right? Which is another thing.
I feel like that's so... I don't know. Just something... I feel like this also involves, like, Afro-Latinos, too, because I hate it when people ask, like, someone that's Afro-Latino, what are you, when they say something like Peruvian, Mexican, Chilean, or something like that, and they're like, speak Spanish, I don't believe you. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with being Afro-Latino?
They don't believe them because they're Afro-Latino, and supposedly being black doesn't fit into that category. There's a lot to unpack with the whole Afro-Latino.
That is the dumbest shit ever. I feel like I'm not in a place to talk about it just because I myself am not Afro-Latina.
We're not, but one thing I do say, look, one thing I am going to do is I'm going to advocate for the Afro-Latino community, and I'm going to push forward their voices. I mean, there's this other podcast that I listen to. I read this article as well by this Afro-Latina woman, and it was about how she wasn't proud to be Latina.
We also had a guest speaker who was also not, like, who had a lot of problems with her identity, and I feel like we don't talk about them enough. Like, we talk about us as Latinos growing up in America, like, we have an identity crisis because we're not really like from here, but we're not really from there either. But like, I can't even imagine how Afro-Latinos feel knowing that they're in a position where
Wait. Well, if for a while the audio cut off. I mean, no, not the audio, the camera cut off. It is what it is. The audio will still be there. Sorry about that. But, yeah, look, it's not our place to speak for the Afro-Latino community, but we can definitely advocate and uplift their voices and make sure that they are seen in our community. You know what I mean? Because they are most definitely Latino. And I get if a lot of Afro-Latinx people do not want to identify as Latino because of the disgusting, horrible, racist past of Latin America.
It's difficult. I totally get it.
Right. If you don't want to, you don't want to. I get it. You know, I mean, like, look, I'm not black. I don't understand how it is to go through those things. We don't. So we cannot tell them how to feel. We can't at all.
That's true.
And, like, in this article that I read that this woman wrote, there were a lot of people in the comments like, oh, then, like, oh, yeah, you're not Latina. You're not proud to be Latina. Like, what, like, what's the point of even saying this? Like, just, like, going in on her, and it's like...
Mexican nationalism is just as bad as American nationalism.
Right.
And, because I'm going to say Mexican nationalism because, let's be honest, that's the default. Like, that's, like, the white people of Latin America.
Yeah.
I'm going to get canceled for that.
Look, that's why I sort of hesitate to speak about how I feel about being both Puerto Rican and Mexican, right? Because I've sort of hit a road bump with my identity crisis where, like, I guess I've just had so many experiences that don't really make me proud to be Mexican. Because, okay, I guess I'll speak about one experience I had. So I used to work at this cafe. I'm a barista. And I used to work at this cafe, and one of my coworkers, he was Mexican. So that day, I wore this Puerto Rico t-shirt, and it was like a charity t-shirt, so it raised money for the hurricane, right? And, might I add, I bought this t-shirt, and I also donated separate funds to the hurricane funds. So I didn't just buy the t-shirt, you know, to, like, get a reward for whatever. It was a cute t-shirt. I'm Puerto Rican. I wanted a Puerto Rico shirt. And it looked vintage, whatever. Okay, I don't need to explain myself. I really don't. I'm Puerto Rican. I wanted a Puerto Rico shirt. So I wear this Puerto Rico shirt. And as soon as I walk in, I clock in, I go behind the espresso machine, I start to clean stuff up, set myself up. He walks up to me and he's like, oh, that's a Puerto Rico shirt. And I'm like, yes, it's a Puerto Rico shirt. What about it? Because I sort of already expected what he was going to say, right? And he's like, oh, like, we get it. You're Puerto Rican. Like, you don't need to wear a Puerto Rican shirt. And he was like, why are Puerto Ricans always so damn proud to be Puerto Rican? Like, why do you guys, like, are always wearing the flag. You guys are always wearing stuff that says Puerto Rico. And me, like, look, am I ever, like, loud and proud about being Puerto Rican? I mean, like, look, you know I'm Puerto Rican. But
A Lele Pond step.
Right. Girl, let's not even get into Lele Ponds. Okay, let's not do that. But, like, okay, so, like I said, he's Mexican. And he had the nerve to really be like, why are Puerto Ricans so proud to be Puerto Rican and blah, blah, blah. He was, like, inferring all this stuff, right, without actually having to, like, say it. You know what I mean? And it sort of made me feel like shit because I felt like I had to explain myself and be like, oh, well, it was for charity, you know, so I bought the shirt. I shouldn't really have to explain myself. I'm Puerto Rican. If I want to wear a Puerto Rico shirt, I'm gonna fucking wear the shirt.
It kind of reminds me of when people are like, when there's like a same-sex couple, like, holding hands or, like, kissing or something in public, and someone's like, why do you have to, like, display it for everyone to see? Or, like, when they say, like, just flamboyant,
right,
like, gay people, like, why do you want everyone to know? Like, why do you want, like, the attention? Like, it's same energy, but I bet it feels like shit.
Yeah, and then you always see those memes about Puerto Ricans, right? Where they're like, oh, Puerto Ricans always have their flag everywhere. How do I identify a Puerto Rican? And it's like them wearing a Puerto Rican hat, a jersey, like this, that. And it's like, look, there's a lot to unpack within that as well. Because, look, let's look at history, right? Let's go back to history. And I know, look, I don't want to sound elitist in this podcast as well. I feel like my main point of like maybe making this podcast is maybe we can educate other people who do not have the opportunity to get into higher education. I barely made it to higher education, right? We barely made it. But with hard work and determination, we got here and we are able to attend college when our parents did not. Your mom did in Mexico though, right?
My mom did in Mexico, yeah. But Papi made it to...
He barely
He
barely made it through high school.
He barely made it through middle school.
Wait, does he only have his middle school degree?
I think so. I think he dropped out as either a freshman or a sophomore.
Wait, did I just say
middle school degree? I think he dropped out either his freshman year or his sophomore year of high school.
Yeah. But anyways, look, I'm not rich at all. I'm not. I go to community college. I did go to a university, but it was too expensive. And I was working 2 fucking jobs just to end up failing all my classes because I was working so hard to be able to pay for college. My mom does not have the means to be able to put me through college. But luckily, whatever. Again, why do I need to explain myself? I feel like we always find the need to explain ourselves because, fuck, whatever. So I guess going back to my story, right? When you look back at history, and I hope I can educate some people on this, and maybe it'll make you think twice before, like, you go up to a Puerto Rican and you're like, oh, LOL, you guys are always displaying the Puerto Rican flag everywhere, right? So maybe think before you go up to a Puerto Rican and say that. And, okay, let's unpack the history on why you shouldn't do that. It's because, so obviously we know about the tumultuous relationship between the United States and Puerto Rico, right? They're a territory. They're automatically citizens when they're born, even if it's on the island. But there's so much that comes with that. There's so much. And they've been fighting back and forth between if they want to be a state or not. Whatever. So when it comes to the flag, should I say exact dates? I would just need to look it up. But there was a time where it was basically illegal to have the flag on the island, to display the flag, the Puerto Rican flag. The United States made it illegal for them to display the flag. So there was a time where Puerto Ricans couldn't even have their own flags out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because of the United States wanting control over this little fucking island. Obviously, we already know how the United States is with Latin American countries and whatnot. They basically just use their land and their people to exploit them, use them for money,
the
capitalism.
U.S. is an empire. Like, it's rarely heard, but God, are they shitty government and shitty people.
Dude.
To this, oh my God.
That's a lot to unpack in itself.
Yeah.
But the reason why Puerto Ricans are so proud of the flag is because during that time, they literally made the fucking Puerto Rican flag illegal.
I feel like that adds to it too, because why are you clowning someone for being proud of their from where they come from, you know?
Right.
Like, it just creates such a problem, because I feel like if Americans get to display the American flag everywhere and literally shove it in people's faces, then why
can't we do it?
Why can't you guys do it? Why can't other people do it?
Right. But I guess that's like a thinking point, so maybe think twice before you say it to someone. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Actually, a lot of Puerto Ricans don't even know that themselves. I didn't know that for a while.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Until now.
So, again, like I said, I don't want to be elitist in this podcast, right? I don't want to be elitist, but I'm here to, I want to, spread this message and educate people, you know what I mean? Because when I find these things out, dude, when I found out about the flag stuff, the young lords, and all of these movements, I get so excited and I go around and I tell everyone. I tell my mom, because obviously my mom didn't really get to go to school, so she doesn't really know much about this stuff. And even my little sister, who's only 13 years old, I'm already radicalizing her to know these things so that, you know, I don't know. I feel like it's our duty to educate our own community on these things.
There's so much work to be done.
There's a lot. And I feel like, you know, we are putting in the work to go to school and learn these things, right? It's only fair that we take all this information back and we go to our parents and we share it, our families, and we share it, so that we can sort of undo a lot of these things, you know, decolonize.
While we're on the subject of school and like how you said like your Puerto Rican identity and how everything is kind of like Mexican dominated in the US, I really am not liking my Latin American studies class, because it's like I took Mexican study class. Literally not a single thing. We talked about the Young Lords for one article. And that's it. It's like, why are we not learning more about this? I didn't know.
What is it? That's going back to the Chicano stuff. You know, in California, look, don't quote me on this. I'm only going off of what I see from people like on the internet and who are actually from California. I know this one girl who was Mexican. She was very much against, like, they have like Chicano studies and stuff like that. That's like a huge thing, is Chicano studies. I feel like as a Latino, why would you solely just want to take a class just based off of your identity? Why don't you want to learn about other people's identities? Why don't you want to learn about Puerto Rico? Why don't you want to learn about Guatemala, Panama, the Dominican Republic, Colombia? Like, why don't you want to learn about these other places? Why do you only want to learn about Mexico?
It does seem weird. Like, I personally don't agree with it, but I understand it.
I understand it to a certain extent, where you have to make a whole course called Chicano Studies, as if...
It's as if it weren't already so focused enough.
Right.
Like, okay, how I see it is, this is also why kind of I identify as Chicana, because it was a journey living in Little Village and then moving to like a really white suburb, and just, you know, living, like, it was just really weird, and seeing how like my identity played out over the years. So I feel like it's that word perfectly embodies what it's like to grow up both here and there. But I do like I'm gonna say Mexican American, because Mexican American culture in itself is just its own culture. But I don't agree that it's right to say it's Mexican American, because there's other Latin American, like, there's, like, let's be honest, like, we both grew up in the same settings. So you're not Mexican, but we went through a similar experience.
Well, I'm Mexican. I'm half.
You're half Mexican, yeah.
Sorry.
No. But you know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah.
So I don't agree that. What the fuck moment? I don't think I like the word Chicana anymore, because it all clicked in my head.
Oh my god.
It all clicked.
Did it just click? No, honestly, I used to identify as Chicana. I did. Remember when I first got into college and I was first learning about all of these things, right? I was like, oh my god, I'm a Chicana. I'm so proud of this. I'm learning about my culture. I'm learning about all these things that I never got to learn about before because of the white-based education system that we are put through in elementary and high school, right? So once you get to college, you feel this sort of sense of like liberation, because you finally get to choose your own courses and, right, learn about what you want to learn about. I wanted to learn about my culture. What I loved is actually my Latin American class my first Latin American class I took. It was actually City Colleges of Chicago. And you'd think that because it's like a community college, the classes ain't there. But no, it was a really good class. We actually did not focus that much on Mexico, believe it or not.
Lucky.
We talked about it for like 1 week at most, a week and a half. And then mostly we focused on Colombia, and we touched on Puerto Rico. We Actually, we mostly focused on the Dominican Republic. So I actually know a lot about the Dominican Republic.
That's
But
good.
I actually like that because...
That's the shit that's so annoying because since middle school, you're learning about the Chicano movement because that's the only movement they mention.
Right, because they only mention Cesar Chavez. That's the only person I remember.
Which is also, which again
on.
is a giant piece of shit. Like, I just have to add it in. He was a piece of work. But what was I gonna say? What was I gonna say?
I agree.
I do agree now where you're coming from. That Chicano studies in itself is like, it's just weird
sort of
because
self-centered.
it is self-centered because it's all we're taught about. Like, we're only taught about Mexican movements and cultures in the US, when it's like Colombia has a beautiful culture. So does Peru. I've been wanting to learn about Peru since always. It's such a fascinating place.
I follow this Peruvian YouTuber, and yeah, she speaks a lot about her culture and stuff like that, and from what I've seen from her, it's very beautiful.
I love it, and I love just countries that just don't push aside their indigenous ancestors like Mexico does. Like, they do it so much. That's a lot to unpack in itself.
Actually, that's another thing. They do. And you know what I noticed about Puerto Ricans? So obviously the Puerto Rican indigenous people, they were called Tainos. And Puerto Ricans are actually very proud to speak about Tainos. I know it's like, a lot of people say that the Taino people were completely wiped out, but actually they have proven otherwise. They have actually found a lot of Taino people that still have very strong Taino blood on the island. And don't quote me on this, I guess. Don't, because I know there's a lot of different things said. But there are still indigenous people, while it may be a super, super small percentage. It's there. But
I think that's nice. Like, even though it's just a small percentage, there's like, they're still being talked about.
Yeah. Like, when you go to... my stepdad, he's Puerto Rican as well. And we would always go back, and we would at least go once a year to Puerto Rico when I was younger. And I actually really love that I got to experience that. But they're very proud of the Taino people, and they speak about them. They speak about the struggles. They speak about everything they went through. Every Puerto Rican is like that, from what I have experienced. Again, don't quote me on that. But it's a huge difference than Mexicans, who sort of use the indigenous culture as like...
They push them aside.
They push them aside, and then they sort of use indigenous people when it's convenient to them.
Frida Kahlo.
Yes.
Frida Kahlo.
A lot to unpack there as well.
We should do an episode just solely on, like, Frida Kahlo. Can't stand her.
And, like, people just like her, like Cesar Chavez. Maybe.
We should do that.
Yeah.
But my grandma from my mom's side is Catholic, but she uses a couple indigenous practices, and she gives credit where it's due. Like, she's always remembering the not bruja, but like someone who works with herbs, it starts with a B. Botanica. Is that like a place or a person?
It's a place. So botanica is where you would go to see like a person that does brujeria.
Okay, a botanica. Someone who she
visits botanicas to visit the...
She used to. Mm-hmm. That's where she learned a lot of stuff. Like, I remember when my sister got rear-ended. It's okay. I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, so I was like, pretty jumpy. So she she cleansed me with, I forgot what it was. It wasn't sage. It was a different plant. It was just like I forgot what it was, but she did that. And then when my mom was little, she used to crack an egg on her head when she had a fever. Supposedly it got rid of the fever.
There's like a lot of things that Latinos do, like even Mexicans. It's like that they don't realize is rooted in like indigenous practices, right?
Yeah, but that's kind of what I wanted to touch on.
Like the limpiada as well.
The limpiada. Yup. My
Like, trust me, the Catholic Church ain't doing this shit.
the Catholic Church, but my grandma like acknowledges. I like that she acknowledges where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Like she has a very clear division of what she learned from Catholicism and what she learned from indigenous practices and cultures, which is what I like.
Yeah, that's nice. But obviously that isn't the case everywhere.
Sadly,
but it's really nice that we get to have those experiences. Mm-hmm. So then it sort of like makes us grow up with these like positive mindsets about these communities and wanting to help them and wanting to uplift their voices, right? Because like as we've seen with like the Black Lives Matter movement is like, you know, like a lot of the discourse that I've seen is like, well, don't stay silent on these topics because it's the reason why non-Black people stay silent is why these problems continue. We need everyone speaking on it. We need everyone, you know, pushing the narrative that this shit needs to change, right? And all of these communities need recognition, so we should just keep talking about it. And it doesn't matter, like, well, obviously we can't speak on certain topics because it is their topics to speak on, but we should keep talking about these things. It makes sense, right?
We should at least keep them in a conversation.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah. I guess that's... No. Not just that. That's not enough for me. I mean, like, in a more aggressive way, but
like advocate?
Yes. We should speak on these issues and educate on it with people who don't. Because, like, I don't know. Like I said, this stuff is like, you could go in so many different directions with these sort of conversations.
An outline would be wonderful. But I think sometimes it's hard, like, hearing about some of these things just because it's like, it's stuff we grew up with for so long. Like, I've already been on the fence about the term Chicano for a while because it's like I guess I didn't think about it as much as I feel like I should have, because I was like, okay, like like it's a perfect term for, I feel like it was a perfect term for me because it perfectly it was like it was a perfect right in the middle kind of thing, you know, like I was born here but my family's from there, you know, so it was like right in the middle, but it's like it's too convenient, you know. It's like it was too clear cut, like there was no way that was just gonna work out. Identity is never just that simple.
Yeah.
But so that and then as like the more and also with like the Cesar Chavez, like I didn't know much about him, I'm not gonna lie. I was never like a giant fan, you know, like I knew the Chicano movement had its own like problems, but I never knew it literally started with like the main person there, like the person that was known for it the most. So I feel like it's just hard seeing that the people who you thought were good people
not actually be good people.
They were awful people.
Yeah.
But I feel like in order to be proud to be Mexican, you should be focusing on these issues. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, looking on this and on this conversation and on this topic, it's like, holy shit, Mexicans are awful. But it's like, there's work that needs to be done. You don't have to hate your identity.
Yeah. I feel like, and look, don't cancel us or anything, because like I said, I'm in a place. Why do I have to say don't cancel us? I feel like, look, just don't come in with the comments like, hey, like, oh my god, you're not proud to be Mexican? Like, lol, then, like, don't eat Mexican food. Don't do this, that's Mexican. Don't do that. Don't visit the Mexican museum, whatever. Right? Don't come on my comments saying that shit. Don't. Because everybody's going to deal with their identity in a different way, and if other people are realizing things that are problematic about the community first, before you, maybe think about why people maybe are having these conversations or feel the need to have these conversations, or even feeling this way, right? Like, why the fuck do I have to even feel this way, right? Growing up as a half Puerto Rican, half Mexican, I felt like I was always shamed to, I guess, okay, going back to this topic, there was a really long time where I was ashamed of being Puerto Rican. And this goes hand in hand with so many things. Like, I feel like I've had so many experiences, but specifically on the Mexican end of my identity and Mexican people that I've had experiences with that make me ashamed to be Puerto Rican, or made me feel like I was less than them because I was Puerto Rican and not fully Mexican. Right? Like my ex-boyfriend. I remember one time, I think...
Oh, fuck. I'm sorry, I hate his ass.
Dude, everybody hates him. Everybody hates him. Okay.
Good. That's
I'm
well
sorry.
deserved.
All of y'all hate him. But anyways, I remember when I think it was the first time I met his younger sister. She wasn't younger than him, but she was the youngest of his two sisters that are older than him.
Mm.
But will they ever see this podcast? Who knows? But fuck that bitch. I'm just kidding. Look, and look. Okay, so we sit down for dinner, right? And it's like her first time like really getting to know me and having a conversation with me. And she asked me, oh, like, you're Mexican, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Mexican and half Puerto Rican. And she looks at me and she laughs and she's like, oh, you won't last long in this family.
What the fuck?
Right, like if me being half Puerto Rican has anything to do with like...
She's treating it like a zodiac.
Child.
A zodiac sign.
I don't... Like, there's just so much to unpack there, right? Why do we keep saying that? Unpack.
You're the one that keeps saying unpack.
Alright, thanks. But like, it's like, why would you even say that to someone? And then also, I just feel like on his end, when I was with him, I was made to feel less than so many times for being Puerto Rican. And he'll probably deny all these things.
Can I add this? Every time I saw y'all together, it was always something he wanted to do that was involved with Mexican food, Mexican culture, Mexican music.
Yes. Okay, that's another story I was going to tell. So we actually lived together. I lived with this ex for a bit. And one day I was like, let me cook him my favorite Puerto Rican dish. And I learned how to make it. And when I made it, let me tell you, it turned out just how my mom makes it. I remember when I Googled it to like sort of like find out more of the ingredients that are in it. It's like considered like a poor man's dish on the island. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you, this shit slaps. My mom, I think you've had it before. It's like the white rice with corned beef.
I love that.
Oh, it's so fire. So you cook the corned beef in its own sauce and it's all mashed up, right? And you just put it over the white rice and you eat it together.
Puerto Rican food is...
Dude,
it's so good.
So I was so excited to make this and sort of show him like a little bit of like my Puerto Rican side, since I felt like, yeah, when I was with him it was always about being Mexican. He was so fucking proud to be Mexican. He was so proud to be Mexican, right? And so he eats it, he takes a couple bites and he puts it down and doesn't touch it, right? And I noticed this and he's like, I don't know, it's just that like it needs salsa or something. That's what he tells me. Like it needs something, you know? And he's like, you know, I just don't really like Puerto Rican food. I just really like Mexican food more. Mexican food is just so much better.
What the fuck?
And look, and like it was like, what got me was that he was like, I don't know, it just like needs salsa or something. Like, first of all, look, it's Puerto Rican food. We don't fucking eat salsa with her. Puerto Ricans do not eat spicy. Luckily, I like spicy, and I can eat spicy because of my Mexican side, because of Papi eating fucking jalapenos with his...
Oh my god, he's a fucking psychopath.
Yeah, he eats jalapenos with his fucking pancakes. I remember that when I was a kid.
He's jalapenos literally at... It's so funny because literally when my mom, every time we sit down to eat, she always pulls out his chile.
His little chile.
Whatever the dish is, she always pulls out his little chile.
That's so fucking funny. But yeah, it just sort of made me feel like shit because it was like a sort of a moment where I was like, oh my god, this is my first time ever cooking a Puerto Rican dish by myself. And I got it right. It tasted just like my mom's. And I was so proud of myself. And I serve it to him, and he's like disappointed and he hates it. And then again, it was like sort of that thing where it's like, damn, Mexicans always here making me feel like shit about being Puerto Rican. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I've had so many experiences like that. Maybe ones that I can't even recall, but it's like, I've just had so many of them that it sort of makes me, now as I'm older, I realized I suppressed the Puerto Rican side of myself, and I said so many shitty things about being Puerto Rican. Like, I remember I always used to say, like, oh, like...
I remember for a while you identified just as Mexican.
Yeah. And it was because of all these things being put in my head that... Because when I would identify as Puerto Rican and people would be like, oh, like, what are you? And they'd be like, oh, half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. And they'd always say shit. I guess maybe it was, like, a thing I did subconsciously to, like, sort of avoid having to deal with that.
Like, just sucks. Like, it just...
Yeah.
I'm gonna just say it just sucks, like, in general. I feel like,
The camera.
Oh.
You have to keep pressing, like, record.
Mm-hmm. I feel like as a Mexican person, I hate that the default is being Mexican. Like, you say someone's Latin American, the default is Mexican. It's like, okay, well, you're erasing a bunch of years of struggle and hard work, and you're just erasing like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
like, I'm proud of being Mexican, but I can't be proud without putting in any work towards my community.
right. I feel like if you're not putting in the effort to sort of like change these things within the community, don't be proud of it, because there's so many problematic things about your community. Why are you so proud of these things? I don't want anybody to think that like I hate my Mexican side now. Like I said, like how I used to like sort of like hate I was sort of made as a child to hate my Puerto Rican side. But it's like when I grew up realizing like, oh, well, this is why I suppressed my like Puerto Rican side. This is why I always told people I wasn't Puerto Rican, or like something like that. What was I even gonna say? I already forgot I was gonna say.
I'm saying it happened.
Look, I don't know. I just want you guys to know that like I'm not shitting on Mexicans, right? I'm not like sitting here being like, oh, like I fucking hate being Mexican. I don't. I love being Mexican. I love the culture. I love all the things that I grew up with. I love my Mexican side. But also, I'm starting to learn how to love my Puerto Rican side as well. And I'm starting to learn I'm starting to unpack.
Take a shot every time Amelia says unpack.
I'm starting to unpack all the reasons why I sort of hated my Puerto Rican side. There you go. I don't hate my Mexican side. I'm just realizing all the problematic things that come with being Mexican.
When you be coming over, we be dancing to cumbias.
Right. Dude, I love being Mexican. When we went to Mexico, I had the time of my life. I loved it. I hope that maybe one day I get to like study abroad there or something. I would love that. But I also feel the same way about Puerto Rico. I love Puerto Rico and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess again, why should I have to clarify myself on why at the moment I'm not very fond of Mexicans? You know, like these feelings come with valid reasons. And look, if there's any Mexicans listening to this or anything watching this video, if you're watching it on YouTube, look, just take a step back and think about why you say these things, not only to Puerto Ricans, to Cubans, to Dominicans, right, to Colombians, anybody. Like, there's so many stereotypes that I feel like come with each country, right, that just, like, shut up. Like, let's just stop with that stuff, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I think self-awareness is overall.
Yeah, look, it doesn't matter what fucking country you come from. Look, we're all the same, right? We may not all have the same foods, practices, accents, whatever, dialects, whatever. We're all Latinos, right? We all sort of like, all of our countries sort of went through the exact same shit of colonialism from Spain, all of that. And at the end of the day, it's funny because when all Latinos come to the United States, they're all seen as Mexican, right? And this is even something that's done by white people, right? By European people, I guess you could say. They sort of categorize us all as Mexicans, and this is very ignorant on their part as well, because it's like they don't even realize the diversity. Look, I forgot where I was going with this again. I was going somewhere, and I forgot.
Take your time.
Look, I think y'all get the point. I feel like we shouldn't have to embellish our arguments with like these like big smart words, right? We shouldn't have to. I feel like this kind of stuff comes with time.
Which we don't have enough time for.
We don't. We've already been here for an hour. But yeah, I guess we'll just end it there. We'll have many more episodes. Hopefully.
Sure. I think we will. We just need an outline.
Right.
What should we talk about next?
Next episode? Should we tease?
We should tease.
Should we tease?
Should we do, I feel like we should do...
I had it in my notes, actually.
Oh, really? Let's see.
Let's see what I have
Add
in
the
my
Frida
notes.
Kahlo Cesar Chavez thing, because, God, I have some shit to say.
Podcast topics. The term Latinx. Toxic people on YouTube. A critique on beauty gurus. I really wanted to talk about beauty gurus.
Well, how about we do, like, a serious one, and then, like, a beauty guru. Like, some shit, like...
Yeah, we'll do,
YouTube
like,
beauty
serious, because I feel like there's a lot to unpack.
I want to talk about... I want to have a long conversation about Trisha Paytas.
Ooh. Not gonna lie, I spent like an hour hate watching her TikTok.
Have you seen the one where she's dressed up as an Egyptian?
Dude, I've seen...
King Tut.
Oh, no. Okay, anyways, next episode, I guess we're gonna talk about YouTube people.
We're also going to talk about Nikocado Avocado and Amberlyn Reed. No, wait. Amberlyn...
Oh, I guess we could talk about TikTokers too, doesn't it? Like, sort of... It falls in the same.
It goes, yeah. Okay, we're going to do this next time.
Alright.
Alright. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye.